Hi, and welcome to Writing with Sandhya. It's the last day of the year, and we come to you with the joy and cheer and happiness with Biswajit Banerjee. It's been an awesome run so far. Thank you, everybody, for watching and supporting, and look forward to lots of shows next year and for all of you to tune in too. So let's get started. Hello, Biswajit. Thank you so much for joining this channel.
Hi, Sandhya. Very good evening to you. And thank you for having me on your show. I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, yes, I think it took us a while to, schedule and meet. So I'm glad that we finally made it happen. Yes, we were just discussing life happens, and yeah, but that's the kind of thing which gives us fodder for our stories and books as well, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Yes, sure.
Yes. I've been watching all your interviews and I really enjoy that. I think you had one session with like Nizam Harris, I think, where you were explaining the different kinds of humor. So I thought it would be interesting for our viewers to hear that. To what are the different kinds of humor, and where would you say your book falls into?
Sandhya, actually, I feel that there might be lots of categorizations of humor and satire, but broadly speaking, there are a few categories on which everyone agrees that these are the basic kinds of techniques that humorists use actually. So number one is obviously the physical kind of humor, that's called slapstick. Charlie Chaplin is one of the greatest components of that humor. Everyone likes that. Then there's another kind which is might be self-deprecating, where the author actually denigrates himself and catches the humor and fun out of that. So the reader actually likes those things. Then there's another kind which can be categorized as absurd humor, where absurdism reigns. That means you are flipping things on their head. You are totally dishing out something which is totally unexpected, and you are actually flipping things on their head to shock the readers. Another style might be the deadpan style, where many stand-up comedians, they do not laugh while they are narrating jokes and connecting with their audience. So that's one of another kind. Obviously, sarcasm, irony, etc. are all part of this deadpan style only, where you are variously using the techniques to create fun, humor, and satire, and obviously other things. Wordplay is also another very important technique which the humorists use. Maybe puns, maybe phonetic mix-ups, maybe malapropisms to actually to quote Oscar Wilde. And then a very important category is observational humor, where you are observing day-to-day happenings and you are extracting humor and fun out of those, which passes our eyes very easily. Because we are part of the setting, we are part of the same setting where the things are happening around us. We are part of the same setting where we are one of the players in this setting. So the idea is to remove yourself mentally from the scene and then observe the happenings very objectively, so that you can catch the fun and humor. So it's like looking. I very much like one of the quotes of Charlie Chaplin, where he said that life is a tragedy when looked from the close-up, and it's a comedy when you take a long shot. So the technique is to look at things through a telescope rather than through a magnifying glass. So when you are looking at a thing from a telescopic point of view, you will be able to catch the humor more easily than when you are looking at things through a magnifying glass. When you are looking through a magnifying glass, all the inconsistencies and other things, they get magnified. So it's better to look at things from a distance. So this self-distancing is, I think, a very pertinent technique which the humorists have to use. to be objectively observe things and then narrate the happenings in a funny way. Scatological humor is another technique where we are obviously creating humor with body parts. So I think these are broadly the basic kinds of techniques which the humorists use. And as far as satire is concerned, as you know that there are broadly three basic kinds of satire, like Horatian, where the author is narrating funny incidents lightheartedly, obviously with an intention not to hurt feelings of others, but still making a point. And then there's Juvenalian satire, which the greatest proponents of this technique may be George Orwell with his 1984, An Animal Farm, and Aldous Huxley with his Brave New World. So these are actually kind of satires which are intended to shock people and show them a mirror in front of them, that the kind of excesses we are indulging in, how excesses can finally take us to a point of no return. Then another kind of satire may be Menippean satire, which is actually a crossbreed of Horatian and Juvenalian, where we do not go as soft as the Horatian does, and not as hard as the Juvenalian does. It's a kind of midway kind of thing. So we are obviously pointing out the inconsistencies of individual traits. So characterization and portrayal of characterization assumes great importance in Menippean satire. So these are, Sandhya, basically the kind of humors and satire which I think can be broadly categorized into.
That's wonderfully informational. And I remember the review, excuse me, that I wrote for your book, and I said it was kind of like Homerian, humor. I think
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Yes. I think now we can just dub you Professor of Humor, because I think you do a great job of explaining.
No. Thank you for that. But really, I think I know little of it, and I am trying to learn much on the subject.
Yeah. So about your book, Happy Mess, which is your favorite story in the book?
Most of the stories, in fact, all of the stories, they deal with mess. I mean, when you get into a kind of mess in your everyday life, and the actual fun starts when you try your best to get out of the mess. And in fact, instead of getting out, you are getting yourself into more messier things.
Yes.
So that creates fun in most of the stories in my book. And one of the stories which I would like to mention is the first story, which is actually deals with let me take it out from deals with a electrical appliance, namely an iron.
That's my favorite story also.
It deals with an electrical iron that develops some kind of a snag of flickering, which happens with most of us in our homes and elsewhere, and how it creates a kind of stress inside me, and what are the things I do to get out of the stress. And when I try to indulge in those things, I in fact am exposing myself to more messier things. So how that actually sours relations with my own wife, that particular iron. So this is a story about that. It's a mix of Horatian satire, as you rightly pointed out in your review, and it's also a mix of observational humor. Because most of the things narrated in the story, I've observed it and observed those things, and I think objectively, if I observe things, I can extract some kind of humor and fun out of it. So that's the story all about. It's all about that.
And it's literally ironical, I think.
Features an iron. So it deals with an iron and the irony is obvious in that.
Yeah. And this
Uh,
may be probably the first book based on a story based on an iron. So I found it, fascinating. Yes, just love that story. There's so many, all of them, so much fun, so interesting, very creative and imaginative as well. So that's a great end of year gift. If any of you are looking to, pick up a book, please do pick up Happy Mess. So as you mentioned, observational. My question was, do you base your characters or events on real life and situations, or purely out of your imagination? Or does, as you said, maybe something happens and it triggers and, you add your imagination into it.
yes, yes.
So,
Uh,
yeah.
So
Okay.
I think it's part realistic and part of imaginative fiction actually. Huh? So uh, when I tell my wife about her traits and whatever I observe about her, so that's a kind of taboo. I can't tell her that, but I can write about it, all those things. And part of the things, there are certain stories which relate to office, as you must have
Mhm.
noted. So that's another world where we work, and we also get a great opportunity to observe a lot of different kind of characters and their traits and how they are funny and how they stand out if you look at them that way.
Mm.
So I would say that my writing is a mix of uh, realism as well as uh, fictional. So it's a mix of that. So I try to create a balance so that it doesn't look too unrealistic, and
Mhm.
it also must not look too fictional.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of balance that I strive to achieve in my writing.
So do people now are a little careful around you because they're like, okay, I might get into, one of his stories next.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I give a very little, I don't give a hint of that because I know I'm easy to talk to, and I
Yeah.
think so. And so it's difficult for them to feel that this guy is catching something which he might try to use in his writing in his next book. So,
Yeah. You want them to feel comfortable with you.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything that you've edited out of the book that maybe it was, you felt there's a great story, you wrote it and then felt that, okay, no, maybe this is too close to realism or any other reason? Anything you edited out?
Yes, Sandhya. In the first draft, when, as you must be aware, you are yourself a writer, an
Yeah.
author. The first draft, of course, is flabby. So you have to cut that flab.
Yeah.
So cutting it in terms of certain episodes that on the second reading might seem unnecessary to add.
Yeah.
When you are initially writing something, you are into a flow, and you don't want to hinder your flow, so you let out the things inside you as they come on, and you don't
Yeah.
actually restrict them. But on the second and third reading, when you carefully and patiently read your first draft, I think most of us would agree that there's a lot of flab in it in terms of mm, maybe incidences which might be avoided, which are not adding value to your writing, which are not adding uh, the desired effect. In my case, humor and satire to my writing. So I try
Yeah.
to treat all those things. So I think when I had submitted my draft finally to Suhail, I had reread that my draft several times, and there were certain episodes which I thought I ruthlessly, in fact, I was, you must feel the pain while you are
Yes.
deducting stuff from your writing. Like all authors, you
Yes.
must know that, but you
Correct.
have to be ruthless in that, and try to imagine from a reader's point of view whether actually those things are adding value to your writing or not. So you have to be ruthless and then uh, deducting those things from your final draft. So that's what I did.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I think all writers go through this editing process, but is it more challenging for humor, as you said, because people are now, if it's come in the category of humor, they're looking for it. So you have to just ensure that everything which is written builds up to it or is humorous. Is it more challenging, you feel?
Yeah, it's quite challenging because uh, uh, the kind of humor we are used to in our times, like the social media has come in, a lot of memes are coming in, people are acquainted with all those things, and they are in fact being bombarded with all these things day in and day out on their social media platforms. So what this has does, I think that the quality of humor has actually suffered because of this. Quality of humor in terms of, uh, I mean, there are a lot of people who feel that cheap jokes are the only kind of humor they have been exposed to. There are a lot of people of younger generations, maybe, who are new to social media, not much into books and all those things. So that's the kind of humor they are being constantly exposed to. So one of the challenges, I would say, while writing my book was that I wanted to dish out something which has got endurability, which doesn't actually lose its sheen over time. I mean, that's why I focused on everyday humor, which people can relate to, and which doesn't lose sheen over time, and has a certain shelf life, I would like to say. And also dishing out something which is healthy humor, and which you can read along with your family and laugh out loud. So that was one of the challenges which I faced while writing. That was one of my objectives.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you're right. I think social media, we're just bombarded by it, and especially in the last 2 years in the pandemic,
Yes.
we had no choice but to look online for our entertainment.
Yes.
But I think a lot of us are writers, also readers. So do you remember the first book that made you laugh?
Yes, the first book was obviously Woodhouse.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Mulliner Nights, it was the book.
Ah.
And along with that, I also very highly rate Three Men in a Boat.
Yes, Jerome K. Jerome. Yes.
Jerome K. Jerome. It is one of the classics, So these are the two books which made me laugh, and which makes me laugh even today and even tomorrow, I think, because they are classics, and the kind of writing, that's much to learn from all those people, actually.
Yeah, that's lovely. In fact, just the previous week, I was talking to Amitabh Sarvate. His book is actually based on Mulliner Nights, and
Yes.
yes, if you're interested, people can go and check that out as well. I think, all of us who love humor, especially, and it's not in every part of the world, but at least here in India, still people love P. Woodhouse, and he's a master of his craft.
Yes.
So when did
What I especially like about Woodhouse is while reading his books, you get what meets the eye. I mean, you are not required to tax your mind to unearth some great philosophy or some great irony and sarcasm. Whatever you read, that's funny in itself. I mean, that immediately provokes laughter. So one of the great qualities of a great writer, that's what I feel about Woodhouse.
Yeah. And also, as I said, he's a master of his craft. Like, if you just look at his words and the dialogue, it may seem nonsensical, but it's all absolutely, leading to the objective and not a word extra.
So all words perfectly in place,
Yeah.
and creating a kind of music which, irrespective of gender, irrespective of location, and everyone can enjoy. So that's special
Yeah.
about.
Right. So even of our time, because I mean, he wrote a long time ago, and we're still reading his books and laughing. We
Yes,
can't probably relate to those any of it, but it's just so much fun.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So when did you start writing?
Sandhya, I have been writing for quite a long time now. Uh, I started with writing poetry
Oh,
because it was one of my specializations in the diploma in creative writing in English, which I did from IGNOU.
okay.
So my first love is poetry, of course, modern English poetry. And thereafter, my poems also got published in several magazines, e-magazines, and this Journal of Poetry Society of India as well. I'm talking about a time around uh, 15 years back, so it's quite long ago. Then I shifted my attention from writing poetry to humor and satire. So when I took up humor and satire, I wrote both in Hindi as well as English.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
so my Hindi humor and satire pieces have appeared in several prominent Hindi magazines. I think people who read Hindi must be knowing there's a magazine called Kadambini, then Sarita. These are some of the household names. So I got my pieces published in those magazines as well. And then there's a short humor site based in UK, which is called shorthumor.org. I had sent my short humor piece there, and they had accepted it, and they had placed the piece in their website. And more wonderful was the fact that that same site brings out anthology of best 50 pieces submitted to them in a particular year. So that's an annual anthology they bring out. And I was pretty surprised when they informed me that they had selected my piece for that anthology as well. So the anthology is named quite interestingly. The name is People of Few Words.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it goes with the short humor.
Yeah. It's an anthology of short humor. So I got published in that, and when I flipped the pages of that particular anthology, I found that all of the authors there were actually Englishmen. Their native language was English, except myself. So I took heart in that, and I I thought, so if I can find a place in this anthology, so why not to go for a book length collection? So that actually spurred me to write a book.
So that was it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yes. So what would you say is an interesting writer's quirk that you have, if you have one?
I would say that I talk to myself quite a bit, sometimes audibly as well. My wife points out that because it's a kind of rehearsal that goes on inside my mind. As an author, you must be knowing that when you are writing dialogues, so you are actually rehearsing things around it inside your mind as well. So there's another person inside you with whom you are conversing. So that's the kind of dialogue which is going on, and which will finally find a place in your book or in your first draft. So there are people who have caught me talking to myself in certain places, in certain secluded places. I would say. So that's one of the quirks which I think I do have.
Oh yeah, well, that's really fun to hear about it. And something which is not so fun, but which happens is writer's block. So do you believe in it? And if it happens, how do you overcome it?
A writer's block is a reality. It's a reality with most of us who write, or rather who intend to write. We must have a faith and a knowledge that if I am going through a writer's block, I am not the first person in the world to go through it.
Yeah.
So lots and lots and lots of authors have gone through this and they have overcome this. And one of the techniques to overcome writer's block, I think, is to read. Read
Okay.
more. During that
Mm.
interregnum, during that gap when you are feeling that there's a kind of dead wall which you have run into, so you try to read as much as possible and utilize that time to converse with the minds of other authors, and that is one of the things I think which can allow you to get rid of that writer's block, because conversing with another author's mind can give you clues that might spur you into writing again. So I think you must
Kick
read.
aside your writing, go and read something. Yes.
And one of the advantages of reading books during that period is at times we feel that we do have an idea inside our mind that might be groundbreaking, that might be very original. But when you read another person's book, and while conversing with that person's mind, it might appear that the idea which we thought as original might not be so original, because you might find that idea in that book. So then you have to realign your thinking and all those things in that direction. That it's a habit of most of us. It's a habit of most of the authors that whatever we think in the first flash, we think that it's hugely original, but it might not be so actually. So we have to check it out. For that, you have to read authors.
Yes, that's a good tip, and I'm sure other writers will find it very useful. But for other aspiring writers, what are common traps for them? Is there anything that you can share advice?
Yeah, for them, I would say that while you are writing non-fiction, try to write what you know. And when you are writing fiction, try to write what you do not know.
Interesting.
Yeah. And allow yourself, when you are writing, to take you to a particular point where your imagination flows very naturally. Very naturally, and then naturally gel with the words that are coming to your mind, the kind of expressions which you want to use. So try to arrive at that point where you would feel that you are writing naturally. You are not exerting yourself, and the thoughts are coming to your mind and finding expression in a language which you find fit. So try to do that. And then the writer's block you already talked about. We had already talked about that. Don't be disheartened when you fall into that kind of thing. So use the time to read more. And I would also suggest them to have patience. When you run into writer's block, or when you are not finding time to write, so have patience, because like slow cooking, I think writing is all about slow. It's in the nature of slow cooking, because when you cook slowly, the thing is most tastier and it's more palatable. You'll agree with that, isn't it? So just like that, when you're writing, allow yourself some space, some time, and then pick up your pen again and make it a process which is not hurried, so that it's a slow process, but it's a sure process, and the results will be better than if you are in a hurry and you are trying to pour out many things at the same time.
That's wonderful advice, especially for, I think, just the generation which you said is, as you said, in social media. So I think tend to have a little less, they're more impatient, want to get the results quickly.
Yes.
But yeah, it can't be forced. You have to, but when you find the zone, as you said, I think then things just magically move along. So just find that place and, just let you find your voice and let things be natural. So yes, great advice there. Okay, now we come to the rapid fire round. So
Yeah,
you can just give some quick answers to, and I have a few questions for you. Um, so yes, of course, you have written books, but you also have a job. So tell us about that. And does your regular job inspire your work?
it has inspired me. You can find from my stories that my office colleagues, they their their peculiarities and absurdities, which I have noticed, and they find reflection in my book as well, in my stories. So that way, that has inspired me to write.
Great.
In fact, it's a fodder for my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. So share something about yourself that the readers don't know.
Uh, really, apart from writing, my another passion is classical music, vocal
Uh-huh.
classical music, which
Oh, okay.
yeah, which I have been learning for many years. Not right now, but I've learned classical music from certain persons who are very knowledgeable persons, and I do also have a taste for Tagore songs because
Ah,
I'm Bengali, and Tagore's
right.
poems and songs. It's a Bengali households are we are well acquainted with all those things, and Tagore songs
Yeah.
the songs carry a kind of depth which is quite unimaginable actually. When a person delves into all those things, all about spirituality and all those things, so it's a great thing to have. My passion is that as well, and so like that, Sandhya.
Yeah. Robindra Sangeet.
Ravindra Sangeet. Yes, Ravindra Sangeet. And in fact, you will realize that he is the only person whose poem has actually inspired uh, two nations to adopt his poems as their national anthem, India as well as Bangladesh.
Yes, wonderful.
So it's a unique feat.
Right. So yeah, do you have a favorite place to sit and write?
Yeah, the favorite place should be I pick up places where uh, there's least possibility of a human footfall. Yeah. So that distracts you, as you know.
Yeah.
And the favorite times to write might be very late into the night or very early in the morning.
Hmm.
When I think these are the two times when we are less stupid actually. Because when we are caught in the humdrum of life as the day advances, so these are the two times when we are less stupid and probably uh, can string up a few sentences more deftly than when the day advances. So that's what I
Hmm.
think.
And there's less human footfall at these times
Yeah,
also.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that helps.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Name a contemporary writer that you enjoy reading.
Uh, I would pick Twinkle Khanna. I
Oh,
think
wow.
you have read Mrs. Funny Bones.
Yes.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
so it's another very good example of observational humor when she is narrating incidents from her own life in an anecdotal way, and she is also self-deprecation is one of the another traits of that book. So
Yeah.
you will when you read that book, you will get a fair idea of most of the techniques of humor that I had narrated earlier while talking to you. So it's a good book, and any aspiring humor writer should go through it.
And what would you like your readers to feel when they read your book?
Uh, uh, in my book introduction, I had said that by the end of this book, that means by the end of my book, Happy Mess, the reader will be able to happily reconnect with the mean and the wicked part of one's inner self. That's what I want to feel the reader. Maybe connect with the childhood times when we played pranks, and harmless kind of pranks, which evoke laughter and joy and mirth among other friends as well as the adults. So I think when a reader reads my book, he should be able to reconnect with his childhood times when he happily played pranks on maybe his friends as well as adults in the family, and people laughed together and enjoyed their times. So this, I think, my objective writing humor is.
Oh, that's such a joyous and delightful thing
Yeah,
to
yeah,
hear.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have your book with you? Can you show it to the screen?
Yeah. This
Can you
is the
show the
book.
book?
This is the book, and
That's a fun cover.
yeah, yeah, and I'm quite grateful to the book bakers and obviously Suhail Mathur for his all the support he had extended while publishing this book. He had accepted this book, and the credit for the cover goes to him as well, because we had several redrafts of the cover, and finally we selected this one. So I take this opportunity to express my gratitude for TBB, the book bakers, and Loxley Hall Publishing, my book publisher as well.
Wonderful. So with that, what's your next work? Is there something that we can look forward to?
Uh, then my next work may be, one thing is certain, that it will be in the nature of more happiness.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am into it, but I have just initially begun writing another draft, first draft of it. So I'm not in an advanced stage of that writing part. So I will take my time. It takes time, official jobs, etc. All these things take a lot of time, and family obligations, etc., etc. So we have to find time. So it will obviously come, but at a later time, and in the nature of more happiness. That's what I can tell.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, for joining today, Biswajit. I think this is such a joyful way to end the year. I look forward to happier and bigger messes, coming from your pen. And wish everybody, a wonderful 2022, and look forward to talking to lots more authors next year. So thank you.
Before we wind up, I would also like to thank you, Sandhya. You are doing a great job. In fact, interviewing people and talking about writing techniques and a lot of things which might inspire our next generation to take up their pen and write something instead of watching things on TV and social media. So you are doing a great job. And thank you so much for having me on your show. And it was wonderful talking to you, and best wishes to you for you as well as your future endeavors in writing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.